Hey, how's it going? My name is Ryan Joseph, and I wanted to talk about some of the shots that I've made over the years and just kind of like tell you about them, explain a bit about, how I made them and why, and, all that type of stuff. It's going to be super off the cuff. Just kind of wanted to, just kind of go back, take a look back at what I've been doing, see if there's anything I can improve on, see what I liked about it, and just kind of maybe inform some of you on how to do this yourself. So here we go. So on the first shot here, we got this spot for Chanel that we did, and we have the subject here. We're dead center on the framing, so we're looking at, basically just trying to keep, this was like a straight on shot, obviously. And whenever you're doing a commercial, you typically want to use a lot of light. Um, Obviously, especially when it's like for beauty and makeup and stuff like that, which is for Chanel. So for this one, you know, we had a lot of units. One of the reasons why is because you want everything to be tack sharp. You want it to be really crisp. Like maybe like your T-stops like a 5.6 or even an 8 potentially. And basically that just helps get, everything in focus from front to back. But the other reason is that, it's generally very flattering on the skin, removes a lot of anything that would be there, though there was no imperfections on Tina with this shoot. Her skin was already great, but, it definitely adds another layer of polish to it. And so for this setup, we had basically, we had kind of an array of soft boxes. I believe for this particular shot, if we look in the eye here, I think I only had one on for this particular shot. Some of the other ones we had a couple other units, but we basically had a softbox that was up here, kind of like shooting down, and then we had a underfill bounce that was coming in like this, you know, basically just a white bounce that was kind of like pulling up the shadows here. So everything here, everything underneath here was kind of like getting brought up, and that's what this bounce was doing. So this was kind of giving us a return. So we had like a big softbox. I think it was like the Light Dome 150, just kind of like right over the camera and shooting down straight forward, getting that butterfly lighting, where you kind of get like a shadow right underneath the nose. And yeah, so that was that. For the background, we had a obviously red. Now the way that we got this red here was with a Nova. I think it was the P300, and it was just shot into a white cyc wall. So I basically balanced for that, got that at the intensity that we wanted, and then we lit the subject, and the light was far away from the subject as it was to the background, that we didn't have any spill from her key light. So yeah, that's that shot. So yeah, that's this one. Moving on, we're gonna go to kind of a more recent project called Dayburn. This was directed by Monica Felice Smith. She's a fantastic movement coach, movement director, choreographer, dancer, and then director as well. So for this shot, she wanted a kind of like this down the line kind of like angle, and we went back and forth on, exactly on how that was going to work out. And so we ended up coming up with this really cool, kind of like this swoop in kind of vibe, where you're drawing the eye from the bottom left to the top right, you know, right to her, and maybe even potentially her would probably be more of where your eye is drawn, because of I think in the last frame of the shot, this whole thing, like we were kind of looking in the middle of the screen. So kind of emphasizing on her, but having this one here as well, just like as another piece. But the way that we lit this one, this scene in this particular shot was just basically built off the main kind of lighting setup that we had. But we basically went in and we took on all of these right here, these fixtures, and we kind of just put in our own fixtures. So we used Titan Asteratubes, and we basically replaced all of these. So every one of these that you see that was on, that was us. We came in and we replaced these. Then what we also had is we moved it for this shot, but we had a big kind of like big softbox kind of thing going on. So we had basically, I think it was a 600 or maybe two 600s going through a big softbox on the left hand side of the frame here, and that was pushing light in like so. Um, so that's basically how we lit this shot. But yeah, I think if I were to do this again, I would bring in something. I would make sure that if I were to do this again, I think I would ask if we could get her hair to not be like this, because I think that's the reason why we're not getting level on her face here. So if I were to go back and redo this, I would probably see if we could maybe just move the top part back or something. But you know, you're moving fast in the day, you don't always see these things. At the end of the day, I still really like this shot. I love the sweeping kind of motion that we got here. I think that's really cool, and I love all of this shit on the ceiling. It's really fun. um, and then I think the last thing I would say, this is an emotion, but we actually started this shot kind of like, with this, we were tilted down and then we ended up tilting up on a count, and then they like all turned their heads towards the camera. They all like kind of turned them. So that was a cool little choreography piece that we did for this one. All right, so moving on to the next. You know what? I have it here, so we'll just keep it going. We have another one from the same video, Davern. This is by far one of my favorite shots that I've done ever, honestly. And it'll probably stick up there at the top for a while. But I just love and again, props to Monica, because she choreographed this whole thing. So the blocking and the placement of the dancers is like, that's basically all her. I was just in to make sure that the camera was getting everything captured in the best way possible. And so, when I came into the rehearsal and saw the choreography, me and Monica could speak about, how the shots would go, and there was a lot of collaborative effort to figure that out. But I just love this circular kind of spiraling kind of vibe that we have here, where like everyone's kind of pointed in towards the central point, right? And so it's drawing your eye to our hero here, which is, I forget her name, I really apologize, but our hero dancer at the moment. And she has her little solo, and she leads the group from this moment on. How we lit it, very similar from the last one. It's the same basic setup. We didn't have any fixtures, any lights in these fixtures. Probably would have if I had enough Titan tubes, but we didn't have enough Titan tubes, so I had to pick and choose. So we didn't have any in these, but you can tell that there is one here, and that's giving us this right here. So we're getting a little level on her from one of the fixtures that was a little more frontal, but most of the level that's hitting her is coming from that soft box that now would have been on the right hand side in relation to the camera. So we have the softbox coming in like this at a pretty low level, but it's just enough for us to see what's going on and get the vibe. The other thing that I think I would have done differently on this shoot, that I don't necessarily regret, but I think I would have toned it down just a smidgen, is I didn't realize when we started shooting this that we had a filter on the camera that I didn't want. So a little insight here. I wanted to put on essentially a filter that blooms the highlights, but not as much. And we ended up putting on the black pearlescent quarter when I thought we were putting on the opaline from Element Filters. Completely my mistake. I think I miscommunicated there, and I didn't realize until halfway through the shoot, and I didn't want to like change the continuity. So in hindsight, this would not be as glowy as it is, and I think that that's a little distracting. So I probably would have done that the right way, or I would have brought down these curtains in a similar fashion to how these are. And I think that that would draw the eye a little bit better in terms of like how these are also pointing towards her. But nonetheless, still a really cool shot. I still really enjoyed it. And, all these little tweaks and nitpicks I always just kind of do to, see how far I can push myself next time. And like, what can I remember to change next time? What can I, actually, how can I improve at this job? in this art form. So yeah, moving on to the next one. We got a shot from one of my favorite music videos I've done recently called Evergreen. This is with Mothika, fantastic artist. And we basically just, the first portion of this video, we're in like this kind of abandoned corporate, very sterile office kind of thing. And yeah, we wanted it to be really kind of moody and dark and all these things. And I remember me and Mothika were going back and forth on like, okay, how bright do we want it to be? Because, this is delivering to YouTube, and we still want this to have somewhat of a beauty look to it, but at the same time, it's a metal rock genre. It's like, it has a heavy feel to it. So we also want it to be moody and dark. So finding that balance was really important to us. Simple shot, we have a similar kind of like almost a frame within a frame here. Leading lines, just kind of pointing us towards her. Generally simple shot. This was just kind of like a dolly back. We were walking with her, right? How we lit this was fun though. So, we have similar thing where we put Titan tubes in all of these pieces right here. And, oh, here we go. You can tell this isn't edited because I'm screwing up here. Here we go. We put Titan tubes here. There was a bunch of fixtures that we were using just to kind of get those overheads. And so most of the light of what you're seeing is from that. The light that's hitting her face here is coming from if I were to draw it, like we had our dolly here, right? And we had our camera shooting like, let's say our camera was shooting like this, and this was her, right? There's Mothika. We had on our dolly track, we had a Duplo, which is 2 Titan tubes that was then encased in a softbox, and then that was tracking with us on the dolly. So when we walked backwards and she walked forward, the light on her face would stay very consistent. And that was important to us because we wanted to give her level. We want the audience to see her face. But it was set at a brightness where, when she did go into the pockets in between the overheads of the fluorescence, that it would get darker, but it wouldn't get so dark to the point where, we wouldn't see anything. So that was a fun little thing that we did. I always enjoy rigging shit together, making it work. Notice also we have kind of a light here. We see this little shape. So we had some sort of it could have been a spotlight or like a small Lico, maybe even a Fresnel. I don't remember exactly, but we had a unit. I think it was over here somewhere shooting down and making that shaft of light just to add interest, always trying to find ways to make things interesting. And then, yeah, that's basically it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, I'm just trying to keep this super chill. I don't want to script this out. I'm just going to kind of speak from what I see and go from there. So yeah, peace.